To join with me in our prayer of preparation. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Today we wrap up our series on stewardship. We've been exploring John Wesley's wisdom on money, where he says, earn all you can, save all you can, and finally, give all you can. We saw in earning that we need wisdom in how to use what we earn. It's not just about making money, but making it with the end in mind. We earn so we can work to build God's kingdom here on earth. In saving, I shared how hoarders struggle to figure out what really needs to be saved. But on some level, we all struggle with this. Saving is a difficult thing to do because so many things in life demand our attention. What's most important, though? It's a hard thing to figure out, but I believe saving has to be integral to how we live in relation to our money. Now we come to giving, and the question really isn't about whether we should give or not. I'd say just about everyone believes we should give something, but really it's about how far we should go. There was a church meeting where a very wealthy man rose to give his testimony. He started with, "I'm a millionaire. And I attribute it all to the rich blessings of God in my life. I can still remember the turning point in my faith like it was yesterday. I just earned my first dollar, and I went to a church meeting that night. The speaker was a missionary who told about his work. I knew that I only had a dollar bill, and I had to either give it all to God's work or nothing at all. So at that moment, I decided to give my whole dollar to God. I believe God has blessed that decision, and that is why I am a rich man today." As he finished, it was clear to everyone that they had been moved by this man's story, but as he took his seat, a little old lady sitting in the same pew stands up and says, "That was a wonderful story. I dare you to do it again." So how far should we go? I've shared before how I was raised in a family that made saving and giving a simple formula. You save 10%, you give 10% as a tithe, and the other 80% you can do with what you want. I've since discovered that the scriptures originally taught that a biblical tithe was not 10%, but was actually 23%. But the story doesn't end there. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 9, "Give as you have made up your mind. God loves a cheerful giver." That is the new standard in the New Testament. Give as you believe God calls you to give. So the amount or percentage is going to be different for different people. But I think there's one clear point Paul makes that we should remember today. He says, "If you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly. If you sow bountifully, you will also reap bountifully." What he means is if you put a lot in, you'll get a lot out. If you only put a little in, you'll only get a little out of it. So what do you want today? God blesses people with righteousness, and he wants to do the same to you, but you've got to put skin in the game to be a part of it. You may have been here a few years ago when I shared some of my finances in a sermon, and when I made some huge strides getting rid of credit card debt and following through on a commitment to give the church 10% of our income, even if we didn't have very much to begin with. I actually thought today I would share with you the changes that have happened since that time. So here's that same pie chart. I'm going to put it up here. This is from 2012. And most of it is the same. There are a few things that have changed. We spend the same amount on food, and if I can have that up, I believe that's 13% on food. Yes, I do have children that eat a lot. The next one is the car, that is 19%, that remains the same. The next one is our phone and Netflix, we spend 3% on that. We've increased in this next category, though. This is our spending money, 7% on other. And so that's because I have children that just keep growing, and I have to keep buying more and more clothes for them. Last week, Emily was telling me that the zipper on Halloran's boot broke. She looked it up, and a new pair would cost $40 for that same pair of boots. I told her to just put a safety pin on it. But the expenses for the kids is definitely the largest area of increase in our budget. They just keep growing. And I know several of you struggle similarly. We're so blessed to have people that give us excellent clothing that is secondhand, and for us there's no shame in that. But like I said last week, the average cost for raising children up to 18 years old, not including college, is $250,000. Children are expensive. Our tithing is the next category up here, and that went up again slightly for us, which makes me proud. Our savings has increased dramatically. That's the next one, from just 3%, what I shared with you several years ago. Now we're up to 10% saving, which we're really excited about. The last and largest category for us, and many of you will remember this one, this is our educational debt that we carry. So that's 35% of our income goes just towards that. But we've also had some dramatic changes in this category for us. Previously, our debt was what we had to pay, the bare minimum payments. Today, we have paid off some of our loans and are using a principle that is paying off huge dividends for us. We are snowballing our debt. That means when we pay off one of our loans, we are not reducing how much we pay towards it. Instead, we are using that freed income to pay off the principal on another loan. By doing this, we are eradicating our debt and will save ourselves at least $10,000. So let's see that next slide. You can see a portion, it's in a darker color, 35%. So 1/5, that darker orange, is now extra money that just goes towards paying off the principal. We've had some more changes just recently, and instead of redoing the whole thing, this next one, 35%, is now at this is in just a few months, 1/3 of that money will now go towards the principal on our debt. So we are radically reducing our expenses by paying off that debt for us. We've also got some extra money. You'll see on the bottom, the tithing part. We got a bunch of extra money, and we decided the best thing to do was just give it to the church. So I didn't redo all the percentages, but now 20% of our money was now able to go to the church for this year, and we're really excited that we were able to do that this year. I hope this doesn't come off as gloating. I don't share this to brag about how good we are doing, but I want others to experience the same kind of financial freedom Emily and I are enjoying. We have a little extra money coming in right now, and we are in a wonderful place of having to figure out what to do with that extra money. And that's on top of everything else that I just shared. So in 2016, we got to figure out what to do with a little bit extra again. And we've talked about a few different things. My retirement fund is one thing that we could contribute towards. We want to put even more money away so that we'll have a bigger amount at the end of our careers. We've talked about our car. We could really use a bigger vehicle. Our sedan just barely fits the four of us with car seats and all. Longer trips are nearly impossible, and don't even get me started on coming back from Christmas trips. I remember when we were first looking at cars before we bought our sedan, and I actually told Emily, I said, I think we should buy a minivan. And she was absolutely appalled. Why would a newly married couple buy a minivan? Well, look who's talking now. I'd like to think that I'm just a little bit ahead of the curve on this one. We're also talking about saving that extra money. So what should we do with it? Where should it go? What is the best thing we can do with our money? You know, I do a lot of premarital counseling. I make it a requirement for any couple whose wedding I'm going to preside over. And there is an exercise I do with most of the couples around the area of finances. I ask them to go home and write out their budget, except I tell them to do it independent of each other. They come back to my office and then share with each other what they've written. And I cannot tell you how amazed they are at each other's numbers. First, they are never the same. They both have different answers for the same questions. Second, they are always floored, and I mean absolutely floored at how much money they spend on themselves. For things like coffee, the movies, or dinner. And once they realize how much they spend on themselves, it's like a light bulb goes off for them. I'm wasting this money on myself. I could put this to such better use. I know there are things that you care about that are bigger than you, things that will make this world a better place, that will radically change hearts and lives for good. How can you direct your resources to those things? How can you give all you can? I think the story of Zacchaeus in Luke shows us something about that. It's a simple story. Jesus comes to the rich city of Jericho, and the chief tax collector, who would have been seen as a traitor and hated by just about everyone, wants to see Jesus too. He climbs a tree because he's short, and when Jesus gets to the spot, he tells Zacchaeus to come down so Jesus can have dinner with him. Zacchaeus is stunned and says he'll give half of his possessions to the poor and repay anyone he's cheated 4 times the amount he's stolen. Now, some people didn't like that Jesus was even going to eat with this man. They thought just having food with someone like this made you as dirty as them. But Jesus doesn't think like that. He doesn't seem to bother to try to connect someone's past with their future. He sees Zacchaeus up in the tree, and what does he tell him? He says, does he say this? Does he say, hey, you are a tax collector and a cheat? You owe these people money, pay them back, and then I will have a meal with you? No, Jesus starts with, come have a meal with me. And it's hard for us to understand the full force of this. You're not supposed to eat with people that don't follow the religious rules. You aren't supposed to let their bad influence reflect poorly on you. It reminds me of a dietitian that spoke at a conference out in Chicago. He was telling the group how terrible red meat is for your diet, how soft drinks can destroy the lining of your stomach, and that even vegetables had been found to contain heavy metals that could kill you. Then he said, all that pales in comparison to the most dangerous food of all. And he asked the group, does anyone here know what it is? This food causes the most grief and brings suffering years after having been eaten. And an old woman stands up in the front of the room and she says, yeah, I know what it is. It's wedding cake. Eating with the wrong people is supposed to make your life miserable. But Jesus is living by another set of rules. Jesus begins with grace. Eating with Zacchaeus is Jesus' offer of grace. And that's when Zacchaeus is transformed. He says, I'll give half of my money to the poor. I'll make it right with everyone I've cheated by giving 4 times as much back. Way more than would have been expected of him. The point is not that he gives a lot of money. The point is that he has received God's grace. And he responds in a full way. His money is the best resource. And because he's received grace from Jesus, he gives as much away as he can. So as you earn as much as you can and save as much as you can, I wonder if you will give as much as you can as well. Will you respond to God's grace in your life in a radical way? You know, some ministers will try to guilt you into giving more. They'll say if you give more money to their ministry, God will bless you with more wealth and prosperity. I think that's silly. Zacchaeus didn't make more money when he put his trust in God. He lost over half of it. But that's what faith does. It makes us reprioritize what we have. It makes us value things that we didn't value before. If you don't give a penny to this church, I don't think that affects God's love for you one bit. God loves you so much, you'll never be able to fully comprehend it. But I do believe that in giving, we become a conduit of God's love. We can help other people understand just how big God's love is. So how far will you go? How much should we give to help others know God's love? $5? $100? $1,000? $10,000? You know what God is calling you to. Emily and I have been blessed with extra money, and we don't need more than what we have. So we're giving more to the church. We're up to 20% of my take-home pay, but there is more we can do too. For the last several years, I've had a spot in my heart for Haiti. They were ravaged by an earthquake 5 years ago when they were already the single poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. I want to help those who are hurting the most. So Emily and I have decided to give an additional $500 this year to UNCOR, the United Methodist Committee on Relief. They have a program in Haiti called Self-Built Homes for Earthquake Survivors. Thousands are still living in tent shelters since the earthquake, but this program selects a family and gives them material and know-how to build their own home. The new concrete homes are now earthquake-proof, and there's a picture of one of these simple, inexpensive homes that will last through another huge earthquake. We don't want to just help ourselves or help the church or this community. We want to help the world. We want to build God's kingdom, and it's going to take some money to do it. I believe God calls us to be generous people, to give all we can, not so we can buy God's grace, but as an overflow of gratitude. It is our way of saying, God, you have blessed us, now help us to bless others. I hope you'll make a commitment to our church today, but I hope your generosity goes well beyond that. I hope every part of your life is touched by God's grace, so you'll give all you are called to give by God today. Amen?
Amen.
In just a few moments, I'll invite you to come forward and to place a commitment card in the offering plate that will be placed here. Joanna and I will be available at the altar rails. If you'd like to pray with us, you are welcome to come and pray with you. But know that there's no shame if you don't bring a commitment card today. That's not the point. You may have not budgeted yet, and you might have to go through that before you give a commitment to the church. Please, don't give unless you've budgeted and you know how much you're able to give to the church. Some have already turned in their pledge cards. They've mailed them in. Some have given them in the offering plates, I'm sure. You can turn it in later if you want to, or not at all if you believe that is the right thing. But I invite you, as Ray plays over the next few moments, place your commitment card in this offering plate as a sign of the overflow of gratitude to God this morning. So I invite you, as Ray plays, to come.